where are we together the most? Where is the most time spent? Where is the most conversation? Where's the most family? Where is the heartbeat of our home? Where do we sit? And it's the kitchen.
Yeah.
It really is.
Mhm.
Because if we're not sitting together eating the meal, I'm cooking the meal, I'm preparing for the food. I've got kiddos standing there stirring. I've got this one telling me about their Lego creation. Simeon's telling me about his day. Like so
Mhm.
much of the heart of our family life is centered in this location around food. Um, and I think that's one of the reasons why we just said, we came to the place where you can't hate it. You can't hate cooking. Because
Right.
if it's the heart, if it's the hub and we hate it, that's going to be pretty miserable. You show up there every day. Ladies, welcome back to the No Higher Calling podcast. Sarah is with me again. Sarah, thank you so much for joining on the podcast. This is just, honestly, I think it's a highlight of my year. I love these conversations with you.
Yes, me too. Thanks for having me again. And I love it as much as you do.
And I'm getting a really good feedback from listeners too. They are enjoying our conversations. And, this is only conversation 3 for the year, but we've got plans for things to come in the future. And I think it's just going to keep getting better and better. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And we should probably start hitting the record button when we first get on a call rather than waiting 45 minutes to an hour
Do you
because
really think they want to listen to us for 3 hours?
oh my goodness. Yes, it's so fun. I love it so much.
Well, before we jump into today's conversation, which is really going to be a great one, I wanted you to share with people where they can find you, kind of what you're doing. You've introduced yourself before, but recently you've been on Substack, which I just love reading your writing. You are a constant source of encouragement, of conviction, and I love friends that are both. You challenge me, and through your writing is one of those areas. So I want everybody to know where you're. I don't want them to miss that because if they don't know, they're really missing out on something good. So why don't you share where you're writing, what you're up to these days?
Yeah, well, thank you and praise the Lord. I was on Instagram. I mean, I still am on Instagram at Faithful and Flourishing. And it's funny, the last several years, we were kind of chatting about this earlier, but the last several years, I have felt the pull more and more and more and more toward writing. And I love Instagram. I love being able to chat with people who are like-minded, but I also feel that it pulls away from what's most important or maybe what I could share that is most important. It's fun sharing sourdough bread loaves and things like that. But I think at the end of the day, sourdough bread loaves are not necessarily what's important. Feeding our bodies is important, but encouraging each other in the Lord is what's important. And I find that a lot easier through the written word. And you can also say a lot more than you can on a little Instagram story. So I just love writing on Substack. And my goal is to always post or send emails because it's an email platform as well, but to send out emails on Fridays. And once a month, we're going to go back. We were talking about this too, but I used to do Friday Fives, which were apparently really popular. I didn't realize it. And I had stopped doing that when I was doing the podcast / whatever else I was doing last year on Substack. And I sent out an email and saying, hey, should I bring the Friday Fives back? And the response was so overwhelming. I thought, okay, I need to do this. So I'm going to do that once a month. So, and that's the things that, basically like a favorites email almost. Like, this is what I'm loving this month. This is what the Lord's teaching me. This is the dress my daughter's wearing. Just the random stuff that is helpful. Again, I like it to be helpful. I don't want it to just be silly. and not useful. I want it to be useful. So that's going to be there. And then, but there is true writing, like you were talking about earlier, just true writing that's hopefully encouraging, hopefully convicting, at least, at least the thoughts have been to me that I try to put on paper, and those will also go out. Although I know it's not as exciting maybe as the practical, give it to me right now and I can put it into practice right away.
Your Substack is so good. And I do feel like it is more deeper than you could get on social media. And everything that you write, you can tell it just comes straight from your heart. You've poured it out. And I think that's why it's so encouraging and convicting. And I do love your Friday Five. I was the one that voted. I was one of those who voted, yes, bring it back. Because of our time zone change, your Friday email I would get on Saturday morning. So it was always a highlight of my Saturday morning is like, oh, I got to check Sarah's email before my day gets rolling. And I
Aww.
love that. Well, it's always a joy to read your things. I will mention I do an email, again, not on a regular basis, but I send it out. And somewhat similarly, I share things that I'm just loving. A podcast episode that was an encouragement to me, a recipe that I love, different things, and then just thoughts from my heart, some things up and coming on the podcast. You can subscribe to that on my website, which is nohighercalling.org. For Substack, do they just go to Substack?
If they go to my website, which is faithfulandflourishing.org, there's a sign up for a newsletter sign up, basically.
Okay, yes.
And so it's a long story, but that email does not drop right into Substack, but I basically gather those emails and put them into Substack so that you are getting my newsletter. So it's kind of a roundabout way. You can people find me on Substack, and you could probably you can search for Faithful and Flourishing on Substack. Yeah, that would work too. But just probably the easiest way is signing up through the website. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep it easy and we'll post both of our links down in the show notes and in the comment section. That would be the easiest. So people can just click over and put their email address in.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Well, speaking of Substack, today's conversation that we're going to have, which is finding joy and purpose in the kitchen. I'm really excited because I feel like though our conversations so far this year have been kind of their own standalone and diverse, it really all links together. We've talked about living a life of love, having the right mindset. We're going to talk about finding joy and purpose in the kitchen. And it all just kind of builds on each other. So if you haven't listened to those past 2 episodes, you'll want to catch that. But this conversation, I think, between you and I originally started with you reading something on Substack. So why don't you share about that?
Yes. So I came across an article and I shared it with Brettnay because I thought, oh my goodness, this would be a really good conversation because this is such a fight, I think, for Christian women because of our busyness in life. And I don't think we were ever meant to be so busy. I think we were meant to be keepers of the home, like the Bible says in Titus. So I'm not going to read the whole article, but I did want to read the beginning portion of the article because I find that it's a really good segue into what we want to talk about, and also very convicting, which is why I even told you about it in the first place, because I thought, oh my goodness, I'm so convicted. So it's called I Hate Cooking and Other Lies from the Devil. Younger me prattled, I don't like to cook, like it was a preference. The phrase rolled off my tongue as casually as I don't like eggplant. But slowly, truth dawned on my soul. I couldn't hate cooking, not as a Christian woman, wife, mother, hostess, daughter to the High King. I am called to hospitality. And what is hospitality if it is not opening my kitchen with joy and heart?
Mm. Way to kick us off, Sarah.
There you go. I mean, seriously, we stop right there.
We've been there, right? Both of us. And I'm sure so many other people. I also think that we live in a day and age and in a culture where it has detracted so much worth from homemaking in general, but especially from the family table. That's something Simeon and I have actually talked about on the podcast before. Just the statistics of people that do not eat together anymore. You talked about our lives being busy. Our lives are so full of running here and there and this practice and that event. There's it's crowded out room for time spent sharing food together at home.
Right.
And that's, I mean, as you look at the statistics, that's actually causing a lot of problems in society today. Children that are growing up never having that kind of anchor to their home life, to their family life.
Mhm.
We see, when we'll get into this, I'm jumping ahead of myself, but we'll see the emphasis that Jesus placed on fellowshipping and communing and eating together. But it really is a delight to
Right.
make a meal, to provide it for your family. I think I shared this on the podcast recently, but I'm in a second trimester of pregnancy now. The first trimester was survival mode. You know, we ate cereal for dinner. We ate whatever could fill our bellies because I was so sick. But I
Mm,
remember so specifically, Sarah, the first dinner where it changed from like first trimester to second trimester because I put so much effort into that meal. And I
oh,
remember like I was beaming, I was smiling, I was so happy. I had music on. We had the vegetable, we had the bread, we had the meat. I lit the candles. And Simeon's like, why are you like so happy? And then said, after weeks of limping along, like, we're going to sit down to a meal that I am really excited to
yeah.
put in my mouth.
Yeah.
And you know, it really can bring joy. I think again, it goes back to what we talked about before, those mind shifts.
Yes. Yeah. Um, you had mentioned, I think early on when we were just first starting to bring this conversation up, but it reminded me of this quote. It says, "Many consider the tasks of home to be dull and boring. However, perhaps this misconception has come because we have removed the creativity and excellence from the tasks." Dorothy Patterson. Don't ask me who that is, but it was a quote I saw. I'm like, oh man, that's so good. And we've talked about this before, but our God is a creator and he has made everything excellent and everything beautiful, and sin has destroyed it. But we are made in his image. And
Mhm.
so we, especially as women, we have a basic need to create. And the Lord has given us the canvas of our homes to create in. And there's a lot of things that goes with that. But being in the kitchen is one of those things that we can take pleasure in. And when we are just trying to hurry up and get it done, and okay, I got 20 minutes, we're going to just throw this thing together. Let's hurry up. We need to shove it down our faces and shove it down our throats. Let's just hurry up. There is no delight in that. And go kind of going into, so we when you have the opportunity, well, actually, I feel like I jumped ahead of myself a little bit, but the mindset shift, I don't think we've actually said it out loud, right? Did we say the mindset shift? The mindset shift is realizing that cooking for our family and baking and doing all these kitcheny things is an act of service for our family. Our kitchen should be a
Mhm.
hub of hospitality. And when we have that mindset, every everything changes. Everything changes.
Mhm.
It gives you the room and the space to be able to enjoy making dinner, because whereas before it was a duty, now it's a pleasure because I get to serve my family in this way.
Mhm. I think too, when we say the word hospitality, at least my mind goes towards others outside my home, bringing others in, providing them a meal. And that's a huge part of hospitality. But I think sometimes we forget that we can extend that same hospitality and should extend even more love and care and devotion to those within our home. You know,
Right.
it's not just, oh, I'm going to make the big fancy dinner and set out the nice dishes and all the things when company comes over, but I have a family here 7 days a week, you know, 7
Right.
dinners a week. And I can really put love and care into feeding them as well. And it really does just kind of turn it all upside down. And now this thing that is something that I have to do becomes something that I get to do and
Right.
puts that enjoyment into it.
Yeah. I think hospitality is just like a basic biblical principle. And you're right. We always say, we're having company over, so and being hospitable. But
Hospitality night.
one of the oh, I don't even remember where it is, but it talks about as Christians being hospitable. And it's not about necessarily having company over. It's about being like the atmosphere or the attitude of hospitality, which is giving of yourself to others. And like you said, it begins at home. If you cannot be hospitable at home, you're not going to be able to do it outside of the home. So I just love that. More of Christ, less of me. This is about pushing my selfishness down. Me is not involved here. This is about serving. And it starts at the kitchen table, feeding the family good food.
Well, I think Sally Clarkson was probably one of the first people that she wrote her book, The Life-Giving Table. And in there, it talks so often about how Jesus used food, used kind of meeting the physical need of people to open up opportunities to reach their heart. And that was a very interesting perspective and mind shift for me as I started thinking about that. And we do see Jesus all through his ministry. So much of it revolves around food. He feeds the 5,000, he feeds the 4,000, he feeds his disciples. They eat together. They, after his resurrection, he has this breakfast with them, like all of these different things throughout God's word, where we see that Jesus, our perfect example, really showed us that this can be an avenue to unlocking hearts and really providing opportunity for connection. And as I think about my home, I think what room, you talked about the kitchen kind of being the hub. What room is the hub? Where is kind of the heartbeat of our home if we're going to look at it in a structure sense? And, we all have our bedrooms, but those are a little more separated. Where is a place where we come and gather? Maybe some it's the living room, some, different things. But I don't know that we're in any room as a complete family unit. Maybe the kids and I are in our downstairs homeschool room because, I'm a homeschool mom a lot. But with dad, mom, kids, where are we together the most? Where is the most time spent? Where is the most conversation? Where's the most family? Where is the heartbeat of our home? Where do we sit? And it's the kitchen.
Yeah.
It really is. Because if we're not sitting together eating the meal, I'm cooking the meal, I'm preparing for the food. I've got kiddos standing there stirring. I've got this one telling me about their Lego creation. Simeon's telling me about his day. Like so much of the heart of our family life is centered in this location around food. And I think that's one of the reasons why we just said, we came to the place where you can't hate it. You can't hate cooking. Because
Right.
if it's the heart, if it's the hub and we hate it, that's going to be pretty miserable. You show up there every day,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think another good thing too is mentioned this earlier, but a woman is called to be a keeper of the home. And I was listening to a podcast several weeks ago and I loved, do you listen to Farmhouse on Boone ever? Lisa Bass.
Occasionally, yes.
So she was talking about, I don't know, I think maybe she was doing a Q&A or something. And she always says, she's got a bunch of kids. I think she's got 9 kids. She's running a business and she's making all this food from scratch, feeding her family. And so she was talking about how people always ask her, how do you get everything done? And she said, I loved her answer because it's so biblical. But she said, I have to be home. She said, if I'm not home, I cannot run my home. Yes. And, being keepers of the home is being a manager and also like guarding our children's hearts. And there's so much involved. Cooking is part of that. But you cannot plan to keep your home and you cannot plan to be able to be in the kitchen if you're not going to be home. Because you have to be home in order to make those meals. And I know I'm not saying there's anything wrong with working outside of the home, but I love what Francie Taylor said in her book. It's her book on Titus 2. Can't remember the title right now. Teachers of Good Things. That's what it is. But she has a section on being a keeper of the home. That is a really good book, by the way. She goes through each little section of
that one.
So she goes through each section of Titus 2. And in her chapter on keeper of the home, I think it's the very last section of that of that chapter, but she says A homemaker must be home sometimes. So even if you work outside of the home, you need to be home sometimes
Mhm.
because, again, if you are not home, you cannot keep your home. So I think that's something to keep in mind as we um, think about, okay, but I don't have any time. I literally have no time to be in the kitchen. Well, if it's important to you, you'll make the time. And I think that's what's happened with me and probably with you too. I mean, we were even home, but it's you have to make it a priority. If something's a priority to you, you are going to make time for it, which means that other things have to go. Instagram probably should go. If you're on Instagram tons and tons and tons and you feel like you don't have time to put into your home, well, putting time into your home is way more valuable than going on Instagram. Let me just say that.
Yeah. Interesting enough, I just did a little bit of math. And if we're just talking about dinner, so one meal a day, and I get that there's a period where they're babies and they're not eating food, but let's just say in 18 years of our kids' life, every dinner, one dinner, for the 365 days a year, do you know that that is 6,570 dinners?
Oh,
That's
wow.
a big number.
Yeah.
That's a big number, but, it is opportunities, and one day my kitchen's gonna go back to just Simeon and I, hopefully grandchildren as well, but, the regular will scale back, and I'll miss the days of having all the kiddos, but you were talking about creativity and how we can reflect God in that area, and I think food, I don't know, maybe just because I'm woman and homemaker, I see God's creativity so clearly on display here. But there's so many things that you can do with the raw ingredients that God has given
Oh,
us.
yeah.
There
Hmm.
is no lack of creativity, of inspiration, of things you can try. And when we talk about in the early days, oh, I hate to cook. This is hard. I came to marriage with some cooking skills. Okay, I wasn't completely inept, and some are, and we live in a society where that's not really something that mothers are teaching daughters. We live in a microwave society where you can get your, what is the hungry man, hungry Jack, something meals, and you know, pop them in the microwave, and there you go, you have those options. But little by little, I think one skill at a time, one thing, figure out how to make this and how to make it good. And then
Hmm.
add different things. But then it opens up to a creativity that I am now not just experiencing in my kitchen, but I'm actually enjoying
Right.
because I mean, we've talked about this, and this is a rabbit trail that I'm just going to go ahead and say, Sarah, we're not going to go down, but we can mill our own flour. So we're not just making the bread, but we're getting that in there. Vegetables. I was making, so it's summer here. I was making this veggie tray for us to go to the park the other day. And I just stood there and looked at it and thought, Lord, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you that every vegetable is orange, or even that our world is not in black and white. Like you
Right.
have so colors and textures. And okay, you're in the winter. There is nothing like stirring a pot of creamy, delicious soup with the protein and the veggies. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just you said it's like a canvas. There are endless possibilities of the
Yeah.
beauty that we can put on that when we spend the time and put a little bit of heart and an effort into our kitchens.
Yeah. When you first come into marriage and
Mm,
or a home of your own and you start trying to cook, I think one thing that it's really easy to do is being stuck to recipes. And as you grow in your kitchen,
mm.
it is so enjoyable to just like throw stuff together. And
Yes.
I think one of the things I don't know if you remember this, but I wrote about this on my website blog several
Mhm.
years ago, but how we do our groceries in our house. So early on, there was a series of recipes, and I just made sure I kept my pantry stocked with all the ingredients from those recipes. But I started realizing if I just keep my pantry stocked with basic ingredients and my
Essentials.
fridge,
Yeah.
Yes, and my fridge stocked with fruits and vegetables, and my cabinet stocked with the herbs that I need, dried herbs. And just if you just have the basics, you can come up with so much. And that has been such a blessing. And we just love meat and potatoes and, a side salad or something like that. I mean, you can do so many things with a side salad, and you don't have to have a recipe, and you can make amazing dressings that go on top. It's just really, really neat to be able to use your creativity and come up with things. And the thing is, you might say, well, I'm not super creative and I'm a terrible cook. Well, you don't necessarily have to not have a recipe. What's really neat is if you have your pantry stocked with the basics, you can pretty much make any recipe. And I cook like that a lot too. Honestly, I'm like, oh, so and so shared this on Instagram. Oh, I'm going to make that for dinner tonight because I have the stuff in my pantry. And I don't know, it just makes it really, maybe just the abundance, maybe just being blessed to have the cupboards with the food in there. It just makes you so grateful. But it's such a blessing, and it's so nice to be able to, this sounds good. Let's go make it, because we have the ingredients in our cabinets in our fridge or whatever. So anything. I mean, baked goods, cookies, it's very nice. It's a blessing.
You were talking about that abundance and having a full cupboard and fridge and things. And this is an area that God has really grown me in. If we're going to talk about finding joy in your kitchen, one of the things that I despised for so many years was putting away groceries.
Yes.
You've made the list, you've put them in the cart or the trolley, as we call it here. You've unloaded it on the checkout. You've loaded it back into your car, and here you are at home unloading it again. And I'll be honest here. For years, I grumbled through that part. I just want to be done. More than likely, it's time to get it all out, put it all away so I can get some of it back out and make dinner, and we're hungry. And just, why do I have to do this? This is such a drab. I hate this part of food. But the Lord really convicted me of that. And so I tried to start, when I was putting away my groceries, thanking the Lord. Thank you, Lord, that you have once again filled our fridge, that you have filled our pantry, that we have this abundance to pick. And it was hard in the beginning. It really required a lot of intentionality on that mindset shift. Years into it, I do that without thinking. And I kind of forget that I do it until my husband mentioned it the other day to me. And, I'm not saying that, look at me. I'm saying that I'm so thankful. Right. Because we all have areas that we need to grow in. But that is just one little specific thing where the Lord has really helped me find joy and purpose and direct the praise and thanksgiving back to Him. And just the reality of so many people do not have this blessing. Right. So many people don't get to chat about enjoying their kitchen because they're just trying to feed their family to survive. We are a blessed people. And we need to turn that blessing back to the Lord. It also made me laugh. You were talking about cooking without a recipe. So I'm a very textbook girl. Tell me what to do. I'll follow step 1, 2, 3. And then I marry Simeon, and his mom is cooking amazing food. She's a wonderful cook, but she's just a dash here, a dash there. Every time the chili is going to be slightly different. And, I'm trying to, Simeon's got his favorites that he grew up with. I want to make them. Blackberry cobbler was every year for his birthday. That's what she made. Can I have the recipe? Well, I don't really have one. I just kind of wing it. I'm like, you wing it? How do you do this? And I still am not very good in that department, except when we moved here, we tried all different kinds of pasta sauces, and none of them just compared to what I could have in the States. So I thought, you know what, this can't be that hard. Come on, we've got AI. It can walk me through this step by step. And so I've started making my own pasta sauce. And some batches have been better than others. None have been horrendous. But the joy and sense of accomplishment that I get, it's so fun. The kids laugh at me because it takes a little while. I got to chop all the tomatoes. And usually I batch it. When I make it, we're going to make it. And freeze it. And so I turn on some Italian music, I'm kind of dancing around the kitchen to my fun traditional Italian, Mamma Mia type. And, I've got my thing and I'm taste testers and all of this. And it's made something that I once thought was like so daunting. Why not just go to the store and buy Prego?
Right.
It's so fun. And there's such a sense of like, I made that.
Yeah.
I created that. I
Yeah.
am not an artist in the like art sense, but I enjoy being an artist in my kitchen. And there is such a sense of accomplishment in that.
I did follow a recipe on that one, I'm pretty sure. Because I mean, actually, lasagna is simple enough that once you have the steps, because it's like sauce and your cheese and your pasta, it is easy to throw together. But for the first time making it in years, I wanted it to taste good.
Oh, and I'm sure it did. We love lasagna at our house. Funny. My daughter Willow, she's 3. I think a family member asked her recently. We were on a video call and they asked her what her favorite vegetable was. She goes, my favorite vegetable is lasagna.
Oh, that is so cute.
So no, we don't do eggplant lasagna in our house. We do noodles. But it is. There's so many simple ways that you can really just cook from your heart in your kitchen. We're going to have to delve into a little bit of health here, just because I know that's something that is very important to both of us. But I think one of the things about this finding joy in your kitchen, being creative, being willing to put some time investment in there, is you can really prioritize your family's health, your specific needs, what's important to you, what are you trying to avoid, what are you trying to include. And I just think that that is one of the greatest benefits of investing time into our kitchens.
Yes. I know. I didn't know you were going to go this route on health. Oh my goodness. So, we've heard the saying that food is medicine. And it's really interesting because on my health journey, which we have talked about my health journey before on your podcast, right? With the circadian rhythm and everything. So that was 2 years ago. So we have more of a journey. However, one of the things at the beginning that I would get so frustrated with was my doctor early on, 2018. You can't eat this, you can't eat this, you can't eat this, you can't eat this. Take this out of your diet, take this out of your diet. Let's get the testing to see what you can't have. Oh, you're sensitive to this. Don't eat that for 3 months. And it just felt so overwhelming. However, when you just go, now I do understand people have an allergy to wheat or they have an allergy to nightshades or, I understand there's those little nuances in everybody's life. However, just back to the basics, if we eat whole foods the way that God made them, the way that he intended them to eat, we already have such a drastic effect on our family's health. Like just the food, because the food is medicine. Early on, I got so frustrated with food and I was like, whoop, it's all about circadian rhythm and not as much about food. And guess what? I'm back to whoop over here because food it's incredible. And one of the things that I'm finding as well, is a lot of our food is deficient in minerals and nutrients. So figuring out ways to add those back in, whether it's through salt, like I think we've talked about on the podcast before, Celtic salt or Celtic salt. I always forget how to say that. I think it's Celtic. But whatever way it is, I say it wrong all the time. And my husband's like, it's not that, it's this. And now I can't remember what it is. But just simple things like that, just getting that whole food diet. They just did the new food pyramid. Did you see that recently?
I did. Yes, I have seen that.
RFK. It just did that. Yeah. And it looks really good. And just simply trying to eat like that is so helpful. And okay, we don't need to necessarily go down this rabbit hole, but we have talked about the benefits of freshly milled flour. If you go to Sue Becker's podcast, she has a whole series on her podcast called It's the Bread Stories. And basically, it's just all of these health issues being resolved because people switched from processed bread to freshly milled bread. For me, my digestion is incredible. And That's one of the biggest things. And honestly, um, it's kind of weird to talk about, but most Americans, their digestion is messed up, whether one end of this spectrum or the other.
Yeah.
So just simply changing your diet, your kids, so many babies, there's so many babies that deal with acid reflux, and
Mhm.
young ones that deal with their digestive issues can be all messed up. We can fix that with the food that we're feeding them. And you know what? Maybe there is deeper health issues. There could be. However, just like I said, if we have normal health, most things can be fixed just by food as medicine, just eating the right food. So yes, that is something I get very passionate and excited about. And you know what's really fun? It's I'm telling you, every time we sit down to eat, it's just so fun. My daughter especially, and I'm sure your kids are this way too. Oh, mom, this is so delicious. And that just makes you feel so good because not only is it delicious, but it's so healthy.
hmm Yes. And I mean, we've talked some about the joy element of the kitchen. We're going to talk about the purpose element of the kitchen. I think there are times where being a stay-at-home mom, or even if you work outside of the home, but your heart is in the home, that really is demeaned in our culture. And
Right.
some of the mundane things, like, oh, I'm just in the kitchen again. It can feel like this is just a less than thing. There's so many better things I could be doing.
Right.
Um, but there's purpose here. I'm not just throwing together something to fill our bellies. Like, I mean, we're talking, and again, we've got our basic recipes. We've got a little bit under our belt, so this may come later for some of you, but we're talking about researching health and nutrition and combining these different ingredients and making things from scratch and not following a recipe. Put it like that doesn't take a robot set on autopilot. That takes a woman that has an understanding of her family. What do you like? What do you not like? What textures do you enjoy? What foods do you prefer? Okay, health is important to me. What are our struggles? What do we need to work on? How can I incorporate all of this? We're on a budget. I can't just go buy everything. So how can I be a wise steward? There's so much thought and effort and heart and purpose that goes into all of this. Um, and I saw something recently that just was really convicting. This mom posted, we say we're willing to die for our families, but are we willing to live healthy for them?
Yeah.
To steward ourselves well. And as wife, as mom, we in this sense are really stewarding the health of not just our own bodies, but of our husbands and children as well,
Right.
because we are the one that is responsible for a lot of that nutrition that they receive. And that really was a challenge to me, because I want us to be healthy and strong for so many reasons. First and foremost, I want us to serve the Lord. I
Yeah.
want us to have bodies that, and again, we live in a fallen world. I understand that. I understand there are things that are outside of control. We're talking about what is within my control.
Hmm.
I want us to have bodies that are optimally primed to do what God's called us to do. And so much of that falls on my shoulders, but not as so much as a burden, but as an opportunity to research these things, to learn. And that aspect really has brought joy, because and I think, you and I enjoy kind of geeking out about this, but I just learned about this. And so I'm making that. And this lasagna was so amazing. Sourdough has been my recent endeavor. I have attempted
Me too.
that so many times and it has just fallen. It's literally fallen flat, Sarah.
No,
Um,
you, Lisa Bass, that the
yeah,
latest
yes.
sourdough bread that I just did, and it was like, whoa, perfect. I
Mhm.
followed Farmhouse on Boone, her sourdough recipe. It's really, really easy. And it flows really nice with my schedule because I started it on Sunday afternoon after church. And I started it after church, and then I was able to do the stretch and fold Sunday afternoon, and then it sat. And then by the time we got home from church, it was ready to shape
Mhm.
and stick in the fridge for like the long ferment.
Yes.
So it was really, really nice. It worked out so well and it turned out so beautifully. And that's why I was like, don't ask me what I did. All I did was follow the instructions. Okay. I don't know what I did.
I know she has a sourdough cookbook that is on my wish list, but I didn't put it there until after Christmas, and my birthday is not till June. So hopefully that's coming. I have been using recipe from Erin Bates Payne. She actually has a YouTube video. I can link that down in the show
Okay.
notes too. And I will link Lisa and Sue Becker's podcasts. But Erin,
That's
all
a
that
lot
to
of
say, I tried and failed. But this attempt, and Sarah, I even made my own starter. Like, I'm really excited about
Yeah,
this,
I know.
and it's working, and I'm
Did you make
so
it with
like,
freshly milled?
so my bread, yes, the starter, no.
Okay. Well, let me just tell you really quick. The freshly milled flour makes incredible starter. And even if you feed your starter, which I don't know if you, I follow Lisa's method, which is basically once your starter is started, once it's ready to go,
Yeah.
then you just fill it, like just make a big, huge starter and keep it in the fridge and then just keep using it until it gets way low. So you're never actually feeding your starter. So then you don't have any waste. However, if you are feeding your starter, the starter just is out the wazoo with the freshly milled flour. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I'm gonna have to try it. So because
Yeah.
I just made mine, and I think we're at the 3 month mark, but it said if you make it from scratch, you shouldn't refrigerate it for 3 months. So I mean,
Ah,
I literally have made a loaf a day. It's so bad that, okay, my 2-year-old, we had sour bread, which is what she calls it, and we've been eating it every day for dinner. But there was a dinner like maybe 2 weeks into the daily loaves that it was like tacos or something. Like, you don't eat sourdough with your tacos. And so we sit down to dinner, and she looks around and she said, "Where's my sour bread?" And I said, "Oh, well, we don't have sour bread with dinner." And she had a 2-year-old meltdown in her high chair. "I want my sour bread."
oh,
So all that to
that's
say, I
funny.
have a long way to go and I'm still experimenting, but it's delicious.
It
And
is
my
so good.
husband is so happy. Like, of all the homemaker tasks that he would love for me to get under my belt, sourdough is the one that he has wanted for so long, and the one that I just thought it's just not cut out for me. But I stuck it out and I kept trying, and it has just been so much fun. I love milling the flour. I love mixing it. I love the stretch and folds. Like,
That is my
was
favorite. I love it.
and yeah, it was daunting at first because I had to find a rhythm. Like you were talking about, I had to fit it into my day. If you're like, "Oh, I have to spend 6 hours baking bread," who has that time? But when I realized it's literally like
3 seconds.
minutes here and there. Like, when
Yeah,
I
yeah,
walk through the kitchen, I stretch, fold, stretch, fold, stretch, fold, done, leave it. Oh, it's so much fun. I loved getting my hands in the dough. My girls are starting to, I'm going to have a baby in a few months. So Eden's all, "Teach me how to make a whole chicken in the crock pot. Teach me how to make sourdough. So that when you
so
have
good. Yeah,
baby, I can do this." And I'm like, oh, I'm so excited that
yeah.
they're excited that that I could pass the love for this on to them.
One thing that was really extremely convicting to me, just because of my issue with infertility, is we like the food that we are feeding our children now will affect their fertility when they grow up. And so that was something that was extremely convicting when I was thinking about feeding my family and what I'm giving them, even the sweets and things like that, just making sure that they are wholesome. We have sweets, we have cinnamon rolls, we have all the things, but they're wholesome and they're healthy and they're actually nourishing us. They're not just empty carbs that are making us sick and hurting our hormones and all that. So that was something that that really stuck out to me. But as far as the kitchen, you may have alluded to this in the beginning, I don't remember, but we do not one of the biggest aspects of hospitality is making people feel loved, cared for, and at home. And obviously, this is our family's home, but for our children, are we making them feel at home in the kitchen? And so if mom's in the kitchen, you mentioned complaining or just stressed out. If you're just always stressed out about what you're making for dinner, or I don't have a lot of time, or then you're going to pass that on to your children. So we want to make them feel at home and comfortable in the kitchen, because especially our girls, this is going to be their life when they grow up. and that's a good thing. That's what God has created us for. But man, if we could just give them such a head start. I know a lot of people our age did not have such a good head start in the kitchen. I mean, I made a few things when I was young, but it's just such a huge responsibility, and I do so appreciate homeschooling for that exact reason, because we have so much time to be in the kitchen, and E's always in the kitchen with me, and she can handle the kitchen on her own, and I'm thankful. This is a funny story. So when there's 10 children in my husband's family, and my youngest sister-in-law, when we were dating, was around 6 or something, and we would go over to their house for dates, and she at 6 would be in the kitchen making cookies for everybody. And I remember thinking, back then when I was 18, we were dating. We married young, but 17, 18 when we were dating. And I remember thinking, I want my daughters, my girls, to be like that. I want them to be able to handle the kitchen when they're young like that. And from start to finish, that includes cleaning up. You don't leave a mess for mom. That's not hospitable. You make the mess, you clean it up. Because otherwise someone else has to do it. You think of others. And it is truly such a blessing, because my daughter's 12 now, and she's been in the kitchen since she was, I've got pictures of her when she was 1, standing on a chair, helping me stir and things like that. And that's the thing. That's a lot of your followers, subscribers, whatever you call them, probably have very young children. It feels annoying, but you cannot expect your 12-year-old when they turn 12, okay, I need you to make dinner, or, oh man, I'm about to have a baby, can you take over the kitchen? No, they're not going to. But if they've been in the kitchen since they were 1, helping stir and adding chocolate chips and doing the little tasks that they can do, they're going to be able to handle the kitchen at 10, 11. And that has just been such a blessing for us as well. And even like helping with dinner. Hey, I need you to take over this aspect. I'm going to work on this. Okay. Like she does when we make pasta, she didn't for the lasagna, but we did pasta, chicken Alfredo, a while back, and she made all the noodle, they're very simple, but she made the noodles, and it's just so nice to be able to delegate, and just say, hey, because
and then they get that feeling of accomplishment. We're talking about we get it. They get that. Like, I did that.
And they need, as children, kids need that for like this. What do they call that? Do they call that self-respect or something? I don't know. You want kids to be confident. You want them to be confident.
Yeah.
And they get that by trying and doing things. And sometimes they mess up, sometimes they fail, and that's okay. We'll try it again next time. You add a little bit more eggs or whatever it is. Yeah. But yeah, just having that confidence in the kitchen starts with our attitude toward the kitchen. Going back to where we began, this little section of conversation is, yes. So just being able to have a joyful heart toward the work that the Lord has given us. It was funny because we're reading Stepping Heavenward together in the mornings, and just this morning we read Catherine there. Have you read that book?
I have not. No.
It's good. It's like it's a real treat to read it with your girls. But it's like a coming of age book, and it starts when she's 16. It starts when she's 16, and she's learning how to basically grow in Christ. It's about Christian growth, but it's written in the form of a diary or a journal. So just this morning, the section that we read was, she was like, she's, I don't know, maybe 18, 19 at this point. And she's like, I just really, really want to do something great for God. I want to do something great for God. And she went to her pastor and she's like, I really just feel like I need to do something great for God, but I don't know. I just don't know what I can do, because I can't go to the mission field and I can't do this. And our pastor's like, well, you need to start just by doing what you're doing right now, just doing that for God. And I think so many times and then she mentions that verse, everything we do unto the Lord. She mentioned that verse in the passage that she was writing, but it's the same for us. I think so many times we forget that the kitchen is a place where we can work as to the Lord. And when we are doing it in our own selfishness, I do not feel like doing this. I do not have time to do this. We're not doing it as to the Lord. But when we're doing it for the Lord to minister to his children, whoever, whether it's family or not family, because we didn't even get to this yet, but it's huge for outside of the home too, or inviting people in.
Mhm.
We are doing it for the Lord. It's all God's work. It's his work. And if we grumble and complain, we are complaining against the work that God has for us to do. Don't
Mhm.
expect to do greater things if you can't handle serving in your kitchen with joy.
Yeah. Well, that's so good too, because I feel like when we do things as unto the Lord, it's really an act of worship.
Yes.
And a lot of worship happens in my kitchen because it's one of the places I spend the most time. But I'm also thinking about the actual act of eating the food and enjoying it. And as Christians, as believers, so much of our conversation should revolve around the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Dinner time is usually kind of the first time my kids have seen Simeon after him being out working all day. And so that's when we unload on daddy all the things that we've learned about in school. And I've started praying over really the past 2 years of our homeschool, Lord, help us to see you in everything that we learned that day. So we try to bring out those elements. Okay, yes, we
Right.
learned about the ancient Egyptians, but what do we learn about the Lord? And so even that dinner time
So
conversation
good.
becomes a part of worship. So when we minimize or belittle or just altogether ignore the kitchen, this aspect of our home and family life, we're really robbing it of so much worship, of family time, so much family culture
Yep.
revolves around the kitchen. I mean, the foods that we eat on celebrations and holidays, the nostalgia that I feel over my childhood, more often than not, is directly connected to food. It really just kind of weaves itself into the fabric of who you are as a family. We've touched a little bit on hospitality. We probably need to do a whole nother episode on that. I don't think we
Yeah.
have time to delve too deep here. But even just being a family that extends hospitality to others, that can so greatly influence your home, the culture of your home, the people that your children get to meet and grow up around. It's just a beautiful thing that I
Mhm.
think is really, like we said at the beginning, as a Christian, it really should have a priority in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because as far as the hospitality goes, my newsletter that's going out at the last, is it the last, yeah, the last Friday of every month. I think that's the plan. um, is called the Kitchen Table Chat. I
Mm,
gave it a new name instead of calling it Friday Five because our entire life, literally our entire life, happens around our kitchen table. We school at the kitchen table and we eat at the kitchen table. I'm sitting here podcasting at my kitchen table. And when we have people come into our home, guess where we sit? We sit around the kitchen table. We never use our living room. We sit always at the kitchen table. And so many conversations and
yeah.
tears and life has happened around the kitchen table with food in front of us, of course, that it's so special. If our kitchen tables could talk, what would
Yeah.
they say? I mean, I just think of like what we have people pass through all the time. And I am such a homebody, so I love having I've learned to enjoy cooking. I love like that's one of my favorite things is to bless people with food because
Mhm.
I just love it. I don't know. And I didn't used to be that way, but it's you know what it is? It fits in with our lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? We're
Yeah.
home, we're in the kitchen, we're already cooking, and it's so easy to just, hey, let's double this batch of cookies and give it to so and so, or,
Mhm.
or whatever. But it just fits into a lifestyle. So it's our lifestyle. So it's really easy to bless somebody. And again, going back to the Bible, being around the table is very, very biblical. And I wanted to add something to what you were talking about with worship. Being around the table is so helpful to add. We talk about what is that called? Habit stacking, pairing
Mm,
things. The
yeah.
kitchen table, like eating around the kitchen table, is one of the best habit stackers for discipleship building. Okay. perfect example. We just recently started doing it, and I shared this on Instagram because it's just been so transformative. But we had been having major struggles getting out of bed in the morning. And it's like, look, you can't go to bed so late. You're not going to be able to get up. And then she beats herself up because she gets herself up. You know, she gets up late. So then she beats herself up and just starts the morning on the wrong foot. And school just is hard. And I said, hey, I'm lighting candles downstairs at the kitchen table. We have some tea. I said, it's going to be early, but if you want to join me, you feel free. She's been so excited about coming down and having her devotions at the candlelight with tea or whatever at the kitchen table. But what is really interesting is the conversations that happen, you know, because I'm here having mine and she's there having hers. In the candlelight, there's no light. It's just so special. And then conversation happens and it's like organic. You know, I'm not like, oh, what did you read for your devotions? Okay. And then at breakfast time, what a perfect place. Our children have their mouths full, they're quiet. It's a perfect place to either family devotions or reading aloud. We love reading missionary biographies. Right now, we're listening to Alexander Scorby chronologically through the Bible while we eat. I mean, it's so perfect to just pair so many things. Same thing with dinner, family devotions after dinner. We're here, we're together, we're at the kitchen table, our hearts are open, our bellies are full. Let's talk. It's just so, it's really so beautiful. The Lord is so wise in gathering people to the tables because that's where the discipleship and the encouragement and everything happens.
Yes. Well, you know, Sarah, so many of these conversations that we're having are really just things that God has taught us. He has had us in the crucible, and we have been learning and growing as we follow Him and seek to steward our homes well. So I really hope that this episode has been helpful for those who are seeking to find more joy and purpose in their kitchens. This is just kind of our story, how the Lord has done that for us. And, you know, there are still ways just some of the things you've said, there are ways that I can do better in this in.
Yeah.
But, you know, we talked about that living a life that you love. So much of it happens in the kitchen. If this is a negative aspect, it's going to really not fit well in that developing a life that I love, a thriving life. We've mentioned mindset multiple times in here. So much is rooted in our mind. But there is joy and purpose that can be had in the kitchen. And, you know, it's a strong statement to make. It's a convicting statement to make. But like we said, as Christian women, this is a part of our calling. This is something that God has given us, and we have a responsibility to steward it well. So I hope that this conversation has given some food for thought. So before we close out, is there any last thing that you want to share?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No,
I was
go
like,
for
hey
it.
there, I need to share this quote really quick before we close because it's so good. But it's
Yeah.
the very last paragraph of the article that we started with. And I thought it just closes so well everything that we've been talking about. The heart of the home is the kitchen. Is that heart brimming with the fragrant aroma of Christ, or is it scentless, sitting empty and disregarded while mother is in pursuit of a better use of her time? Oh, how much we are missing when our kitchens are not a vibrant place of worship to our Savior.
Mm, beautiful. And that does. I feel like that sums up the conversation perfectly. From where we started of I hate cooking to we don't get that choice. We're going to use this as an opportunity to serve the Lord and to serve those that He's put into our home. So, Sarah, thank you so much. These are such a treat. It's always a joy to talk to you, and I think people are really enjoying these conversations. So, until next time, friend.
Yeah, we'll see you later.